refuting allegations of misappropriation of funds. A hefty sentence handed down to one of the men accused of killing Barry and Sheena Johnson. And a youth leadership program launched.
The Bahamas Tonight Northern Edition starts now.
Good evening all, I'm Shashina Roll-Farquharson. As always, it is so great to have you with us. Topping news this evening, the Deputy Director of Urban Renewal on Grand Bahama is responding to widespread social media reports accusing her of misappropriation of government funds. She's taking exception to the charges, calling it a smear campaign, and is threatening legal action. Sabrina Brown has her story tonight.
Presented against me. I call for the persons involved to substantiate their allegations and provide proof of claim.
Deputy Director of Urban Renewal on Grand Bahama, Senator the Honorable Jasmine Darius, refuting allegations that she misappropriated funds from that ministry. She says since taking office in October of last year, she has and continues to operate under a system of transparency and accountability.
Every activity, every function, every operation that we've carried out, we are mandated to produce reports, records, and receipts. Let the record reflect. We account for every dime, every dollar that is spent in urban renewal, every last one. There are no checks that are produced from Urban Renewal Grand Bahamas office. There's no contract that is originated from Urban Renewal Grand Bahamas office. All checks, all contracts, they are processed, payment, salary from the head office in New Providence. We don't have a credit card. We don't produce funds from this office. There's no cash. There's no bank account in Grand Bahama. Urban Renewal Grand Bahama, from I took over, has never had, as a matter of fact, a budget.
Senator Darius says the situation is disheartening, and she says she is prepared to take legal action.
I have already instructed my counsel to put in a defamation of character writ, and we are prepared to take this to the fullest extent of the law.
She says she is a woman of credibility and integrity, and she believes the accusations were spewed by jealousy and hatred. She says it is troubling that some people will go to any extent to smear one's character.
The Bible says a good name is better to be chosen than great riches. I have been a pastor in the Grand Bahamian community for over 10 years. I've been in the community conducting empowerment sessions for women, back to school events for the past 6 years. We've been feeding in the Garden Villas areas. We have food programs that are regularly run. I have been in this community, and I am known in this community as a credible and an integral woman. I came into politics with my name and my integrity intact. And when I leave, I will leave with my name and my integrity intact.
Sabrina Brown, ZNS Network News.
Now to news from the court, where one of the men convicted of the 2015 murder of Barry and Sheena Johnson learned his fate today. After giving her summation to the court, the presiding judge handed down a heavy sentence. Italia Hall was there. Armed police officers surrounded the court as the young man convicted of the murder of Barry and Sheena Johnson, 25-year-old Devon Hall, walked into the Supreme Court. Justice Estelle Gray Evans listed Hall's charges, 2 counts of murder and 1 count of armed robbery. She also shared some of the evidence that was presented in court during the trial, from the surveillance video to some of the testimonies provided by Alan Alsame and Virgil Hall, who turned Crown and is now serving time behind bars for armed robbery. Justice Gray Evans noting that the death penalty was requested by the prosecution and explained the laws related to the penalty. She also referred to several other cases. The presiding judge then moved on to Hall's psychiatric report, where he admitted to smoking marijuana and drinking occasionally, but was cooperative. According to the report by Dr. Dillett, Hall is not remorseful and he denies any involvement in the crime, but it does not mean that he will not be remorseful as time goes on. Justice Gray Evans also read Hall's probation report, noting that he was not convicted of any crimes before. He was an employee at the Grand Bahama shipyard, making over $500 per week during the time of the incident, and has 2 young children, ages 2 and 4. She also read reports given by Hall's family and from the deceased. Justice Gray Evans rejected the request for the death penalty, noting that although the crime was horrific, it was not the worst of the worst when compared to other cases. Devon Hall was sentenced to 120 years for the murder of Barry and Sheena Johnson. He was also sentenced to 25 years for the armed robbery, which will run concurrently, and the time spent in prison already by Hall will be deducted. As Hall walked out of the court, family members of the deceased couple could be heard sobbing. Family members of Barry and Sheena Johnson say they feel a sense of closure, but they wanted more.
It's still a long healing process, but at least we have some closure. It's been this past 3 years, it's been very hard. Then dealing with a 1-year trial, it's been rough on both the parents, on both the mothers. It isn't an easy task.
I thought he should get the death penalty for killing those 2 people terrible as he did. He has 2 children. I will never have. I never said I thought the planet to have a child. And he take that away from me, and I'm so sorry. I wish he could get the death penalty because he went in their home.
Representative for Devon Hall, attorney Jacqueline Barrows, declined an interview. Reporting for ZNS Network News, I'm Italia Hall.
Now, as for the other men involved in the crime, Paul Belazaire, he was found guilty on the armed robbery charge in May of this year and was sentenced to 25 years. But there was a hung jury when it came to the murder of the couple as it relates to Kevin Dames. There was a hung jury on all 3 of the counts, and he is currently out on bail. In other news, the father of a young man who was killed in a recent traffic accident is on a crusade to change the traffic laws in the country. As Jay Philippe tells us, he has taken the petition to the schools.
Activist Troy Garvey continues his campaign of justice for his son Trey Garvey, who was killed in a hit-and-run accident in July. He is now on a journey to educate kids on vehicular laws of the country. His latest stop, the 8 Mile Rock High School.
The only laws that sit on the books now is killing in the course of dangerous driving, which gives only a 3 to 4 year maximum sentence if found guilty. Our plight right now is to amend the law to include vehicular homicide and vehicular manslaughter.
Troy Garvey also sharing the overall objective of the tribute and his aim to spread the word as it relates to current traffic laws in our country.
We look at the laws only when something happened to us. So now it is my time to educate the people as to how our laws are situated in this particular sense. And as we go through the law fighting this, we are finding out that there are other antiquated laws that has not been amended for the period of the inception of independence in our country.
The activist says every road user should be aware of traffic laws in the event you are faced with similar incidents.
We're raising the funds for the tribute in order to move through the country, get to Nassau, table the legislation, table it to the House of Parliament, present it to the House of Parliament for them to table it so that they can understand what we're trying to do to update and upgrade the laws of the country. In this particular case, vehicular homicide and vehicular manslaughter.
Troy Garvey says he will continue to make public appearances throughout the island of Grand Bahama with hopes of educating the wider community on vehicular traffic laws. Reporting for ZNS Network News, I'm Jay Philippe.
Thank you, Jay. Switching gears now, the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture focusing on youth development. The ministry launching a leadership program to build youth mentors on Grand Bahama. Ramiko Knowles has this report.
The first session commencing at the C.A. Smith building with guest speaker of Freeport Bible Church, Pastor Kyle Maycock. Pastor Maycock using his experience as a young pastor to demonstrate the importance of good leadership.
David led his generation with 2 things: integrity of heart and skillful hands. David was the kind of leader in his generation, and he was a young leader. He was the kind of leader he was in his generation, and God used him to impact an entire generation because of these two things: character and competence. That is the contribution, that is the most valuable part of what we do.
The Freeport Bible pastor also advising attendees on the value of youth ministry. He says that we live in a time when young persons are suspicious of leadership.
If we could communicate to them that first, that we love God so much, that we're willing to give ourselves to God first and to them second, we've already broken down this barrier that culture has put up. We are breaking down this barrier that sometimes their homes has put up. When we manage or when we attempt to minister to young people and they kick back, and you know, some of them are rebellious, we have to realize that they're not always rebelling against us, you know. Sometimes they're rebelling against what we represent.
Youth pastor of Agapeos Ministries, Pasman Sutherland, says that youth development training is vital. He adds that many persons serving in the capacity of youth advocates possess zeal and talent, but lack the skills and training.
We've seen where persons who are passionate about serving young people, whether it's again in ministry, soccer coaches, people that serve in any area, because of the lack of training, sometimes we end up doing a whole lot more damage than we do as far as impacting. Small stuff from the way we communicate to the way we deal with crisis and youth in this country.
The course will be executed over a 15-week period and thereafter will be conducted every Tuesday at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. in Freeport and in the community of 8 Mile Rock on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Reporting for ZNS Network News, I'm Ramiko Knowles.
You're watching the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Stay with us. There's more news right after this.